Welcome to the Duncan Duo Real Estate Show. This is Mike Yates with Atlantic Bay Mortgage, joined today by Robert Johnson and Louis Savanetti with the Duncan Duo team. Also have Reece Register from Rent It Network with us today. So wanted to jump right in. Reece, I believe you guys have a new lease.
A new leasing program is kind of unique to the industry. So first of all, I appreciate you guys having me on. So, talk a little bit about property management. One of the biggest things is vacancy with homeowners or investors to make sure that their property's not sitting vacant because it's costing them money. They're not collecting rent. So we wanted to bring something more valuable to the table, not only to our owners, but also our tenants. So we've launched something called Lightning Fast Leasing. And how appropriate here in the Tampa area, call it Lightning Fast, but it worked out. But our properties on average right now with our already super powerful marketing program have been on average market for about 28 days. So we wanted to increase that and give more value all the way around. So we've upped the ante on that. We're going to expand social media marketing. We're going to do open houses for rental properties, which nobody does. And then also we're going to offer some move-in incentives for tenants. So the same kind of things they would see if they were looking at an apartment complex, which are going up left and right. There's some kind of incentive for them to move in. So we're launching that for the single family sector, townhouses, condominiums. Number one, to get those properties out there, give them more advertising, but also for the tenants, if they can get at least $500 off that first month's rent, that's a huge incentive for them to want to look at Rent It Network properties and limit those days on market for our owners so they're not losing vacancy. So super excited to launch this. The pilot homes that we've done have been about 7 days on market. So Wow. As soon as we get this out there, the move-in incentive, we're actually getting applications prior to the open houses because people are so, ready. We got to get this home because it's super nice. It's in our wheelhouse as far as price point, and it's got the move-in incentive. We want to get that quickly. So we're getting those applications pretty fast.
I was going to say, is this something that the owners opt into, or is it something that you suggest to them, or how? I'm assuming it's not every property in your network.
Exactly. So perfect question. So every property is not going to qualify for this program, but it's going to be an option for an owner that's in a unique situation. And some of the situations we've seen is an owner maybe got a new job in Atlanta. That was the last one we had. And she had to get her home either sold or rented out quickly. So we told her, if you're planning on moving back to it, let's just rent the property out for 3 or 4 years. And we'll get it taken care of. So she immediately calls. I give her this solution that we can do the move-in incentive because it necessarily wasn't about the upfront finances, but just something long-term steady so she can make that transition into her new job in Atlanta. So I offered the program to her. A couple of requirements that we make of the owners: the house has to be rent-ready, so it can't need any repairs or paint or anything. It has to be cleaned, ready to go from the day we put it on the market. And then the second part of that is it has to be a pet-friendly home. So that opens up your applicant pool a little bit more too, because if it's not pet-friendly, obviously you're limiting that because a lot of people have pets nowadays.
Yeah, that's interesting about the pet-friendly. I wouldn't have thought about that, but yeah. That definitely does lower the pool of people that are probably looking at the property.
Yeah, and we come up with this with trial and error before we launched this. Seeing what was going to work that made it advantageous for the owner, but also for the tenant, and make sure our odds were good. If we're going to put $500 out there as a move-in incentive, then we got to make sure that we get the largest applicant pool that we possibly can.
Yeah, because I think that's, as far as how quick stuff's renting out, I think that's always a fear of owners if they want to rent their property out. They're worried it's going to sit on the market, or they really don't know how to price it as far as, what they should charge so it moves quickly, but also not underpricing. So there's definitely a balance there.
Yeah. And that's where, having an experienced property manager partner comes into play. We rent a lot of homes throughout the Tampa Bay area, so we've seen trends. We know what areas are going to rent faster, what may take a little longer depending on some characteristics of the home also. So when I offer this program, I go over it line by line that here's what this home 3 doors down rented for, and this is how many days. We're going to offer $500, so we may be able to push the comp a little bit higher because they're going to get the move-in incentive. Or if we're not offering this program, there's no move-in incentive, we may want to not push that comp so much. So there's a lot of math and seeing, the same thing as a retail sale market. You've got to look at all these variables to make sure you're giving your owner, your client, the best value and making sure that we're not sitting on a vacant unit.
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons why we really wanted to partner with you guys, because similar to us, we have so much experience because we have so many properties, we do so much business, so we're able to look at a large sector of the market. We are able to say, okay, well, stuff in this area, because we do so many properties and sell so much, we can say, okay, we know it's going to sell like this. So you guys are kind of like that, except in the rental market. Because you have such a large inventory of properties, you're able to look at trends and everything like that for owners easier.
Yep, and you guys know everything's a number. We look at it as metrics, so we have to put all of those metrics and experience together to give a great educated guess on what we think we can, in your case, sell the home for. In our case, it's renting the home. And, we keep in constant contact with our owners, so if we get into 2 weeks and we've seen limited activity, probably the number one thing, if we're not getting any feedback on the home, is going to be price. So we're not going to let it sit there long. We're going to call the owner and say, hey, let's drop it, $20. If we're sitting on a vacant unit for a month for $20 versus let's get somebody in there and knock it down $20, the overall picture for a 12-month period, it makes sense to drop at 20 if we're not getting the activity that we need.
Right. And not to get too into the business, but retail pricing for sales, is rental pricing something where people usually go in there and they negotiate with you guys, or how does that normally work?
So we kind of look at it like this. When we set a price, we don't want to negotiate. You don't go into Publix and negotiate for the price of meat when you go back there. It's you want that piece of meat. You're going to pay what it is.
My grandma might disagree with you on that.
Yeah. So we don't negotiate. We feel that we price it very competitively. We're very market competitive to that area, wherever the home is at. So we don't negotiate, but if it has sat out there a long time and there's some feedback from a potential tenant that says, I like this, but it's about $50 price past my price point. At that point, where our fast, responsive, professional atmosphere that we have, I'm going to call the owner and say, hey, we've had limited showings, but we had a really good one, said they wanted it $50 less. What do you think about that? And we'll have that conversation. And if it's something the owner's comfortable with, similar to an offer, somebody may put an offer on a house that lowballs you, you'll present it. And if it's something everybody's good with, we'll move forward with that. Because here's the thing with our rental market, we renew leases on a 12-month basis. So we get 12 months into that lease, we'll reevaluate that, and we might be able to raise that rent up a little bit more annually versus sitting on that for a long period of time. So there is that opportunity to raise the rent because a tenant, on average with us, renews for about 2 to 3 years. So if we can limit that vacancy for 2 to 3 years by getting a tenant quickly, by $50 reduction, then we can raise that over the next 2 years on the renewal process.
Right.
So Reece, on the for the longest time we've had low inventory and hard for buyers to find places. Is that similar in the rental market? Is there a lot of inventory? Is there a little inventory?
We've actually kind of seen an inventory increase, and one of the things that's driving that is there's been a huge boom the last 2 or 3 years in appreciation in homes, and people are trying to capitalize on that. Here lately, we've seen owners that aren't necessarily able to get the asking amount that they've wanted. They've built these homes, usually it's 2016 or newer, and they're expecting this great return. They don't have enough equity in the home, so they can't get the price that they want. So now they're turning around and say, well, maybe I should rent it for 3 or 4 years and then turn it around into a resale property. So we kind of see that as the intentional landlord that doesn't want to lose money on the house or even break even, but they're looking at a point, well, maybe I'll just wait a little bit longer and generate some rental income, and then in 3 or 4 years, I might turn around and sell that property.
Right, and you guys at Rent It Network will, manage properties for that investor that owns one home or owns 1,000, correct?
Yeah, and it's kind of unique, and it's kind of built over time. We have some investors that the intentional landlord that may have one single family home, and then I have some investors that have 40 or 50 homes, or a one unit or a one property that has 50 or 60 units as an apartment complex that doesn't require on-site management. So we have a lot of experience across the board. So whatever type of investor you are, if you're the one home or 100 homes, absolutely. And the biggest thing with Rent It Network, and I think that kind of goes unsaid a lot of the times with property management companies, is how well we take care of our tenants, because they play a vital role in that property as well. We've got to make sure we get a good quality tenant, and any issues that come up that they need some kind of response to, we're going to take care of that for them in communication with the owner, being that liaison between the two. But ultimately, if we take care of the tenant, they pay their rent on time, they renew at a higher rate, and the most important thing is they're going to take care of the property for the long term. So if they are wanting to sell that, there's not a lot of maintenance and repairs because they have taken care of the home.
Right, and it's my understanding as far as the tenants are concerned to, make sure you have better or higher quality tenants in there. You guys have a pretty intense screening process. Or I don't know if intense is the right word, but
thorough, I guess,
right.
would be the right word. So we do obviously a credit check, income verification, prior rental verification, nationwide eviction search, I mean, there's a whole laundry list that goes into that to make sure that we're putting the right tenant in there. Because if we place the right tenant, they're going to pay that rent on time. They're going to renew. So if we start the process in the right way, the end product is going to end up the right way versus taking shortcuts. We're not going to take the first applicant that comes through that maybe doesn't meet our credit qualifications, but it's taking a little longer. It just doesn't make sense for the property of the owner in the long run. So absolutely, we do a very detailed process as far as tenant screening.
Okay. And what would you say is a main advantage to using a property management company like Rent It Network as opposed to doing it on your own?
So we take a very professional approach, and some examples I can give you is the number one thing I see with self-managing landlords is they rent to their family and friends. That's the first mistake they make. So even if you're going to go that route, having a professional management company to be that liaison and buffering, there is no negotiation. Rent's due on the 1st, it's late by the 4th, we're going to call you on the 5th. So if you have that professional relationship, there is no negotiation. We have that process in place. Self-managers tend to want to negotiate. It gets to the 5th or 6th of the month, and they're like, can you pay your rent? Yeah, I'll have it to you by the 12th. The 12th turns into the 18th. The 18th turns into they're behind a month. The 1 month turns into 3 months. Then you find yourself in this position that how do I even proceed with an eviction because I didn't have step 1, 2, 3 in process. So hiring a professional management company just ensures that all those processes are in place for the long term. A lot of self-managing property managers more or less look at it as a short term, but we're looking at the long-term investment of the property.
Perfect. Now, and if there's an investor out there or, someone looking to get into that market, what's the best way for them to get in touch with you guys at Rent It Network?
So give us a call or actually visit our website, rentitnetwork.com. If you are looking to get in an investment, I definitely suggest get with a real estate agent that has a good property management partner. So if you're going to work with the Duncan Duo, make sure that your agent that's trying to find you an investment property is also partnered with Rent It Network as your property management so we can evaluate the properties together both on the sale side and the rental side in the long term. If you have that gap, you're going to have that gap 3 or 4 months after purchase because all the T's weren't crossed and the I's weren't dotted as far as it being a rental. But check us out on our website. We do a lot of posting on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter also that kind of shows us in action. There's also some podcasts on our website that we talk about some situations that we went through that normally aren't talked about. So we take that time to put those out there so people can understand how detailed property management is.
Perfect. And I know, I've been in this market for 4 years now and, worked closely with the Duncan Duo a lot. And there's been a couple different, property managements that come and go. But with you guys so far, I've been more impressed with what you have to offer than anyone else and the other ones that I've seen. So definitely check out Rent It Network.